What is going on, everyone? Matt Savoca here for the Stochastic Best Ball channel, and I am here with my buddy Nick Lepre, and we are talking about one of the most important strategies that has come out of fantasy football and best ball over the last few years. That is the zero RB strategy. We are here to break down the strategy, what it means, how you execute it, and then we're going to show you some real drafts where we actually did that on Underdog Fantasy. Nick is here today. Follow him at Notorious FNTSY. How are you this morning, bud?
I'm doing excellent today. I'm very excited to talk about the zero running back draft strategy. Now, funny enough, before we recorded this video last night, I was tasked with trying to do one of these zero running back draft strategies. And the first draft I got in, there was no receivers that I wanted at the end of the first round. I drafted 3 running backs in a row. So that is a good kind of statement to make because you got to understand that while we like the zero running back strategy, make sure you don't just blatantly go into the draft and do it because you're not going to end up with the correct value if you do so.
Read the room. Read the room. That's always an important thing in life and in best ball. And yeah, absolutely, guys. And we were on this best ball draft, this live draft on Monday with Chris Spags, and he was kind of calling out the Stochastic crew as the RB lovers of the best ball world. I didn't know that was the reputation that we were getting all of a sudden, but maybe we just aren't as into zero RB as everyone else is into. I don't know if it's just the T levels or whatever's going on, but yeah, that it happens. It happens. And draft value always is something to consider. Also, differentiating yourself, being unique, picking a player that typically goes in the mid second round, in the early or late second round, is a simple way, but a solid way to be unique. And we're going to show you a couple draft examples here. So let's start with the actual strategy definition. Zero RB, you have definitely heard it if you've listened to a single fantasy football or best ball podcast over the last, say, 4 years or so.
Yeah.
What is your definition of a zero RB strategy, Nick?
Yeah, I think the definition of what it is changes from person to person. My best rule of thumb is that you make it through the first 5-ish rounds without selecting running back. Now, you can modify it. You can go maybe one running back after the 4th round, and then you kind of fade away from running back again and hammer wide receivers or tight ends, anything like that. My definition, though, is around the 5th or 6th round is when I feel the most open to start hammering in on the running back position. Though, if you want to truly do this, how some people do it by the book, you might want to wait until like the 8th or 9th round and really get those wide receiver values, and then maybe reach up and take a top end quarterback as well as a top end tight end.
The concept of winning the flex is something that we should talk about in
Yes.
conjunction with zero RB, because the idea that you can use wide receivers and tight ends to fill out all of their starting positions and the flex position is really the limit which you should take zero RB in your draft. So in an underdog fantasy draft, that's 3 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and 1 flex, a total of 5 non-running back players. You can add a quarterback in there. After that, it's probably disadvantageous to just
Yeah.
move away voluntarily from the running back position. Can you push it further? Can you push this strategy further? Absolutely. But I think the 6th round as your first running back still constitutes a zero running back draft. I'd like to hear in the comments if I'm really wrong about that. Nick, I thought your definition was really strong, but roster construction and scoring and roster settings of your league or your best ball league absolutely matter here. So we're going to use
Yeah.
Underdog as an example. The 6th or 7th round is the first time we would consider a running back if just blindly executing a zero running back strategy, which we already said is not what we necessarily recommend. So that's why we wanted to show you 2 different drafts, 2 different ways to go about executing this same exact strategy. So if you don't mind, Nick, I'm going to pull up my draft here as the first one. Yeah, now it's being pulled onto the screen, and I'll zoom in just a little bit to help us out. I'm drafting from the 11th spot here, and so I took Devontae Adams with the 11th pick, and then Deebo
Mhm.
Samuel is a player that I've been wavering back and forth this season on. You know, obviously he's still not signed to a mega contract. He requested a trade, and he still was the most efficient, uniquely utilized wide receiver in the league last year, and that could happen once again. Not to say that he's going to be the best rusher in the world, he's going to be the best player at the position, but I think Deebo Samuel's unique usage on his own team makes him a viable option in the 2nd round, and that correlation with Las Vegas in Week 17 works for me. Las Vegas also plays Pittsburgh in the fantasy playoffs, so Deontay Johnson coming back around at the 35th pick interesting as well. Then I saw Darren Waller available. If you catch our best ball situation room video from yesterday, we talked about Darren Waller being considered in the mid fourth. When I had Adams, I said, let's do this. Let's push this. Let's grab Waller in the early fourth, a little bit early for me, definitely, and then see what happens as we come back around trying to get that Derek Carr mega stack. I end up going running back at pick 62 and then back around at pick 83. The draft started falling that way for me. I saw the correlation once again. We now have theoretically two San Francisco 49ers to go with my two Las Vegas Raiders, and my two first running back picks there are Elijah Mitchell and Antonio Gibson. Two players who in week one, drive one for their offenses will be getting that first carry for their team. Yeah. I'm also able to snag Hunter Renfrow and Derek Carr finishing out the Las Vegas Zord stack. That's what I really wanted. And I'm actually able to get a skinny stack of Kyler Murray and Zach Ertz, which I really like in the middle of the draft there. Finishing out the draft, it's all about upside, right? Alexander Mattison could have a huge role if Dalvin Cook goes down. Jamison Williams could have a huge role the minute he comes back from injury. And then getting some guaranteed touches. Gus Edwards, Jamal Williams, Raheem Mostert. I think these players are going to play a lot on their teams, assuming health. And then I'm just shooting for the moon. Odell Beckham, hopefully he gets signed and he's healthy soon. Cedric Wilson, I think he is a sneaky high upside play despite being the fourth receiving option on a team that is trying to revamp themselves offensively. And then Cyril Grayson, one of my 18th round darlings that I convinced you to pick in the late rounds of one of our recent drafts, a track star who is playing with Tom Brady this year, scored a long touchdown in the at the end of the regular season, and that team needs receiving options with Chris Godwin likely out for the first few weeks. So there's a strategy. Pick 62. Not the latest I've seen a running back go, but I think Elijah Mitchell, Antonio Gibson represents strong value if you're waiting as long as possible for a running back. So there's my example here. Gives you one way to skin a cat, if you will. Nick, why don't you pull yours up as well? Because I think you pushed this to the limit, and I really like it. Explain your process.
Yeah, you were probably a young child when that song came out, right, Matt? Push it to the limit.
Push it to the limit.
All right, so here we have my strategy here, where I went a little bit deeper than Savoca did. I went CeeDee Lamb, Mike Evans, Jaylen Waddle, Cortland Sutton in the first 4 rounds. That is 3 wide receivers and then my flex. So I have all of the flex, or all of my main 3 receivers and my flex filled out. And then I went with Dalton Schultz. I like Dalton Schultz a little bit more than some people do. I understand people say, the 5th round's a little egregious. And maybe it is. I could have taken him in the 6th round. Maybe it would have looked a little bit better, but that's just one pick later. And then I go with Adam Thielen. I understand I already have 4 wide receivers, but I think Adam Thielen has the upside to be a top 12 wide receiver. So I swung for the fence with him. And then I went ahead and got my quarterbacks. I stacked up my receivers that I took earlier with their quarterbacks. So I got Tom Brady with Mike Evans, and then I have Dak Prescott with CeeDee Lamb. And that was the end of the 8th round. And then I realized eventually I'm going to have to draft a running back, right?
This is cool. I really like this. Picking from the 12 spot, you let the draft come to you. Sorry to cut you off, but I think you played this very well. And there's lots of different receiver upside types in there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's how it works sometimes. Sometimes you're sitting near the end of the 9th round and you still need a running back. I love it.
Yeah, right here, when I took Dak Prescott, I really like Singletary. I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire a ton, so it was kind of difficult for me taking Dak when I already took Tom Brady, but I wanted to make sure I got the correlation that I wanted here, and I think these are going to be 2 of the best teams in the NFC, so to me, it was really a no-brainer. And then I have to take a running back, right? I have so many receivers. I have 2 quarterbacks. I have a tight end. Don't have a single fucking running back, so I'm like, you know what? Let's go with Rashad Penny, who kind of with the thought process you had, this is a guy that could be the number 1 guy, week number 1. Who knows how things are going to go in Seattle? Rashad Penny, obviously, not the most healthy player we've ever seen. But if he could stay healthy, legitimately has really strong value in fantasy football. Then I go with Cordell Patterson, more of the upside shot. He was the fantasy football darling last year. We'll see how things work out. Then I'm filling out running backs that I think could be pass catchers after Dameon Pierce, who I think could be the lead back in Houston. I go with Nyheim Hines, Kenneth Gainwell. Gainwell's role, very confusing last year, but I think he does have a stronger role in this offense this season. And Nyheim Hines, the backup to Jonathan Taylor. If Jonathan Taylor goes down, it's not like Nyheim Hines is going to be just this workhorse running back, but I think he still will see some volume even with Jonathan Taylor healthy. And then eventually, you take so many running backs in a row, got to have back onto the wide receiver core here. And I go with Corey Davis. We do know that Zach Wilson loves older people. available. So Corey Davis here made perfect sense for me. Then I go with J.D. McKissick, another pass catching running back who should be seeing some volume in his offense. And then since there's a lot of correlation in this draft, I don't remember exactly the teams that Tampa as well as Dallas are playing off the top of my head. One of those teams is Arizona, though. So I went with AJ Green, the old man himself. Then I went with Donovan Peoples-Jones for the upside and closed out the draft, realizing I need another tight end. You can't just leave the draft with one tight end. So I go with Brevin Jordan, thinking maybe Houston is a little bit better than people give them credit for. And if I'm being honest with you, I think Davis Mills deserves a little more credit. Brevin Jordan will be all right this year as the number one tight end at Houston.
Yeah, apparently they're using him a ton in the red zone as just your second tight end. I think it is a little thin, but if you want to scroll up slowly here on your draft, look at the colors, everyone. If you're watching on YouTube, this is very easy from the 12 spot, and scroll up a little bit. Nick executed what you would call block drafting. He needed one position, and he drafted a block of those players. Schultz, notwithstanding, you're just going for an entire receiving core on your team. But you basically drafted a block of starting wide receivers, a block of starting quarterbacks, your starting tight end, and then you focused on your running back block. That is a strong way to draft. In general, it's a strong way to draft. You shouldn't go in blindly, just as we're talking about with zero RB overarching strategy today. But that block drafting, honestly, that helps you offset the uncertainty we have about individual player projections by taking a bunch at similar ADPs. So really strong choices there. I really like this draft. And guys, these draft boards we have been showing you have been part of Underdog Fantasy, which is truly the best place to play fantasy football. You see the banner at the bottom of the screen if you're watching on YouTube. We've got a promo code for you guys where you can get up to a $100 first match deposit bonus. That is 20 free entries into the Puppy 2 tournament currently raging on. They've had Puppy tournaments for us with $5 entries all summer long. They've also had the $25 Best Ball Mania 3 tournament with 3 opportunities to win $1 million. And the best place to get projections and rankings so that you can actually take down big prizes, it's over on Stokastic.com. Stokastic.com/best-ball. We have a current promo right now where you can sign up for a weekly pass to our best ball package for $1 when you use promo code PUPPY. That easy. Head to Stokastic.com/best-ball. Use promo code PUPPY when you sign up for $1 access. Really cool stuff. And as we conclude here, I do want to talk about just the strategy in general, the pluses and minuses. To me, I just want to mention that zero RB is a little bit like fitting a round peg into a square hole. From a value-based drafting standpoint, if we knew how these players were going to play the entire season, we would take the running back ones first. That's why Nick was saying he had trouble taking non-running backs at the top of rounds. But this is all about uncertainty, injury rate, and the fact that you can benefit from that uncertainty. When a running back one goes down, somebody else gets replaced. Somebody replaces him in the offense, and they often have a similar role. So we want to take high upside plays that can benefit from that uncertainty. I thought you did a great job with that with Dameon Pierce. But then we also need standalone value, pass catching value, or just known opportunities in strong offenses. Nyheim Hines, Jamal Williams, Gus Edwards. These players are unsexy, to say the least. They are not going to win you your league on your own, but they are going to give you 7 to 9 points and maybe even the occasional 15-point game to help you when your optimal flex plays are doing their thing and you just need a running back too to lay down that floor. Any final thoughts about the overarching strategy, why it works, why it doesn't work before we get out of here, Nick?
Yeah, and we've been talking about best ball this whole time. This is on the best ball channel. In a redraft league, the zero running back strategy is basically won completely on the waiver wire. There is no waiver wire in best ball, which is why you're seeing us sprinkle 5-6 running backs, which is not really the normal in comparison to what we are doing in a lot of drafts. If we draft running backs early, there's some drafts where I end with just 4 running backs, but when you do the zero running back strategy, you need to be spraying and praying from deep in the draft and just shooting on a bunch of running backs, because eventually when you take that many shots deep in the draft, one of them is bound to hit. It might not be in week 1 that Dameon Pierce starts off the season. Maybe Marlon Mack gets to go at the beginning, but a couple weeks in the season, maybe it's Dameon Pierce time, or maybe it's one of the other running backs time that we've talked about in today's video. So it is very important to stay patient in this as well, because if you fully commit to it, you're going to want to pull the trigger on running back at some point. Just hold out, because there are a lot of running backs that go later on in the draft that are really the running back one on their team. So it is not as difficult as people kind of make it out to be.
Our co-founder Alex Osimo Baker talks a lot about when you wait in the draft for a certain position, running back in the zero RB strategy, you take the quantity over quality approach. Couldn't be more important with the running back position in best ball, where again, like
Yeah.
Nick said, you do not have the waiver wire. This has been a quick introduction, overview, and a little lesson on zero RB. We showed you 2 ways that you can execute the strategy using real drafts on Underdog Fantasy. Hey, one of these it might take down, 5 figures later. And so you saw it here first. Nick, you can follow him at Notorious FNTSY. I am at Draftaholic. I'm Matt Savoca. Guys, this has been so much fun. We will be back soon enough on the Stochastic Best Ball channel, breaking down all things best ball. For Nick, I'm Matt. We'll see you guys later.